If you're choosing the same camera for every shoot, there's a good chance you're choosing wrong. It's not because you own maybe a bad camera, but it's because you're not choosing the right camera per project. Here, let's get into it. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that they build their personal camera package and they force it on every single job. Look, I don't care that you got the new Nikon ZR with its bigger screen and raw N, or that you got a Sony FX3 and it's a compact cinema camera, or even let's knock on the Canon C50 because its resolution is, I don't know, who cares? Just because you own the thing doesn't mean it's the right camera package per project. And I can explain, but first, some coffee. Some Columbia Les Palmas. In my opinion, in my experience, the way you should be thinking about this is not what do I own, it's what does the project need. I get it, you've invested some time and some money into a camera package and you've got a 24-70, but the client doesn't quite necessarily care what you already own. They want to make sure they get the best results out of the money and investment they're doing into the project. I know that just because these cameras can shoot all these different types of resolutions, or some have low light, or or the big name brands like an ARRI or a RED, many a times they're not the right camera for the project. For instance, I own a RED V-Raptor and I have it consigned at a rental house in St. Louis at Horizon Cine Glass. You should check it out if you ever need a rental. But it's not the camera that I call upon on every single job. It has its strengths, and dare I say, it has its weaknesses. I bounce between that camera and the ARRI Alexa Mini LF, the ARRI Alexa 35, or the ARRI Alexa Mini Classic. Sometimes the Sony platform like the FX9, 6, the 3s, or the Venice can sneak its way into a project, but I'm typically somewhere in there. I'm no stranger to the Canon C300 Mark IIs, and I'm no stranger to any of these smaller compact cameras. But for the type of work that I'm doing, it takes a team. And this little Sony FX3 that I'm shooting on right now was the right camera for a shoot, but not the right camera for every shoot. I had an unfortunate mishap happen when I first bought this camera. I was scammed out of $2,650 trying to buy it used when the price of the camera still is valued way higher than maybe what it should be. However, I learned from the mistakes, and I've been using this camera because a project came along that had 3 different location shoots for multiple days, and I knew that if I bought this camera, because it is the camera we're going to be matching with Sony FX6s and 9s, I knew that this camera would be paid off by the end of the shoot. And then I own a camera that I invested, sure, maybe $6,000 to $8,000 worth of cages, camera, batteries, placements, the whole works. But it's paid off, and it made me money. And right now I get to make great content with it, on YouTube. But it's not the right camera for every job. In fact, sure, this camera has made it on the commercial sets that I've shoot, but it's not what we're pulling out of the bag for every commercial. Sure, it could be a crash cam or whatever, but what I'm trying to do is encourage and remind people that just because you own something doesn't mean it's the right camera. It's pretty bright. May have not done something right on this one, but it's the coffee we got for today. Once you start shifting that mindset, things get a little easier. Once you start realizing that, hey, what does this project actually need versus what cameras or lenses I have, then the project starts to make a whole lot more sense. Here, let's get into it. So here's 7 quick tips on how you can choose the right camera and lens package for any shoot. 1, what are you shooting? Whether you're shooting a commercial, a narrative, or a documentary, each camera can help push you towards a certain direction. For those run and gun documentaries, sometimes those FX9s could be a better choice versus, let's say, the RED V-Raptor. Or, maybe just shooting on something more compact like an FX30. I think you really have to ask yourself, what are we shooting and how much does the camera play a role? Do we need to be a small camera package so light that I can just grab it up from the ground and hold it right here for, a couple hours? Or will I have a team with me that can help lift the camera onto my easy rig? Honestly, when I like to choose what I'm shooting, whether it's commercial or narrative, whether it's story driven or product driven, I quickly lean towards the Alexa for all things story driven. I feel like anytime I put the camera down on sticks just to frame up a shot, I'm like, I think it's good. We don't really need to light this. This camera just out of the gate looks so good through the eyepiece, through the monitors. The Alexa just has a way that I feel like stories are drawn towards it. Whereas the commercial side with the RED V-Raptor, I'm like, whoa, we can make this product shine in 8K. We can have the flexibility of getting slow motion shots at 8K 120, or we can go even crazier. up to like 600. I don't know which resolution it does that at, or it has more of a clean look. So more often than not, I'm choosing lenses that are a little bit more dirty or vintage to help kind of bring back some life to this really unique camera sensor. But I always ask myself, what am I shooting? More often than not lately, it's commercials. But if you have a narrative out there and you're looking for a DP, shoot me a message. 2, hate to say it, but we gotta ask ourselves, where's this video going? Is it going on the big screen, or is it going on our little screens? And does that little screen have to be vertical, or what platform? Unfortunately, these days you're having to consider, and unfortunately I think make it a little bit easier with your framing choices towards the center for how often they're going to be getting a cutout at 9x16, or some of the jobs I've done not too long ago, we've been rotating the whole camera and shooting at 9x16. The RED V-Raptor is a perfect example of a camera that can do that excellently because of its shape and form. Pair that with the Ignite Digi's Keystone cage, where it allows you to literally switch the camera on its side, and you're able to, the mounting points are all in a very convenient place that it's kind of seamless. Or you can use tools that allow you to like rotate the camera evenly within the cage quickly. So you can go from 16:9 to like a rotated quickly to like a 9x16, all within seconds. But yeah, you gotta ask yourself, where is this gonna play? I don't say, oh, it's gonna be playing on the iPhone, so we don't need to shoot in 8K. I'm not a producer. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, hey, let's worry about the storage space. I'm not worried about storage space. I'm worried about getting the best quality that I can get and what camera is the right tool for the job. Because more often than not, you don't necessarily need that resolution, but because the form factor is there, that it was easier to use, and because it has the flexibility of its dynamic range, maybe the RED V-Raptor was the right camera to use. Or the Alexa, even though we're gonna just put this on 9x16 on your phone, well, it's got a bigger, large format, has a taller sensor where it's easy to use 9x16 cutouts if you're going full sensor. Like, I'm not going to just try to downplay the resolution because the final product resolution is maybe, let's say, lower. Bonus pro tip would be capture in the best resolution, because it's not always gonna live on there, on the cell phone. Maybe you're gonna use some of these clips for your reel, or honestly, you're just future-proofing the client. In reality, some sensors perform way better in their full sensor versus a cropped in version of it. So you gotta ask yourself, where is this video gonna be playing? And 3, do you need speed versus control? This is sometimes definitely chosen within cameras, but also is a big question for your lenses. For the camera side of things, there is a flexibility, that dual native ISO that offers a speed and ability for your team to move faster with less equipment, because you're able to switch your ISO to 12,800 and you're able to continue to get night scenes with maybe less lighting instruments. Or is it control? Are you working inside a studio and you need absolute precision because you're on a motion arm? Now this also comes down to the lenses. I do own a set of DZO Cat Ace from the 18 to 35, 35 to 80, and 70 to 135. Also, fun fact, I'm the first person to put those lenses in an inner space designed case. I feel like the case of the Cat Ace is no bueno. I should have probably figured out a rhymed case ace, send that case to outer space. It's not great. So I partnered with Interspace Cases to design a custom case for those lenses that also matched the kind of quality coming out of the rental house that I have the lenses consigned to, all matte black, and I designed spaces for small matte boxes and filters, rods, and a few other things to make honestly, these lenses are better for speed, for your documentaries, maybe your corporate shoots where they don't need a prime because the client is not paying for prime. All that being said, check out Interspace Cases if you need a custom case for any of your needs. I highly recommend them, they're great. Not sponsored, just big fan. Choosing the right lens matters. Whether that's speed or precision, you gotta use the right lens. More often than not, for most commercials, I'm using a prime lens because I have the team. I have a second AC swapping lenses with my first AC, and they're doing this quickly, and we've got a rhythm. But let's say you're doing a documentary, you need to really quickly punch in. That's where that zoom lens can come in handy. So you gotta ask yourself, is this speed or precision? And 4, you gotta ask yourself, what should this feel like? That's a big question for your lenses especially, but also refers to your sensors, like I mentioned before, with the narrative feeling Alexas or the commercial feeling Reds. You gotta ask yourself, what does this need to feel like? More often than not, I'm using some vintage lenses to kind of bring back some life and some character the way they flare or some of the imperfections wide open. You know, I like to lean into those based on the story or the project we're shooting. I've done some hospital ads where I've leaned towards the really clean but yet high quality of the ARRI Zeiss signature primes, and or down to even to Supreme primes. Sometimes using these really clean lenses, you still might want to throw a little filtration in front of it just to soften up or make some of these practical lights glow. It all depends on what we're shooting. You gotta ask, what are we going for? All my YouTube videos are shot on like these vintage Konica Hexanon lenses. One, because they were affordable. Two, they covered large format. Definitely not least. But three, dude, they're really cool. I love the way they flare. I love the look. And we're having fun. We're making videos on YouTube. I have not had a chance to sneak these cine modded lenses onto a commercial because of the workflow quite yet. Now, I do have the mod so I can put gears on there, and I do have it threaded so I can put matte boxes on there with a 80mm, you know, kind of front element on the front lens. But it's still not the right speed and the right, you know, size for most of my commercials that I'm working on. And you have to actually consider that in some of your shoots. Like I just did a shoot with the Zeiss Super Speeds. The iris is in the front of the camera and the focus is in the back. Sometimes that can be a little tricky to new focus pullers or what kind of matte box you're using. Because the way the lens is built, when you focus, the lens telescopes forward and back. So if you clamp on a matte box to the end of that, and sure, it's attached to a PL mount, which is pretty strong. That's some extra strain being put on that lens. That is not, you know, over time, that's not a good thing. Especially if you're doing a lot of motion. If that's moving a lot, that's not a good motion for the lens. So we went with a swing away. We got the 15mm rods, attachment to the matte box, got the, you know, rubber donut on there so that we could swing the lens away and we close it back on the lens so there's no light leaking in. Those are some of the considerations you have to do whenever lens you're shooting. In 5, which camera system makes sense? You gotta think from pre-production to post-workflow. Which camera system aligns with the client, which camera system aligns with your experiences, and which camera system, you know, delivers the most bang for its buck. I'm not just thinking about on-the-day production needs where the ease of working with an Alexa Mini LF, from its built-in NDs to its flexibility of shooting RAW and or just ProRes 444, whatever XQ. These formats are tried and true for colorists. They're easy to transfer and be used on operating systems. I haven't experienced this myself yet, but all the new hype around the Nikon ZR, which is a very cool, you know, situation going on. But the post-production is not caught up to the demand that the camera is able to do. We just did a pilot where we shot 4 Alexa Mini LFs and 2 Alexa 35s. We had a 6-camera shoot, all shooting RAW. We shot over 80 terabytes of footage for this pilot. And post workflow was a consideration that as a second unit DP, it's not a thing I had to make. You know, it was a question and a concern that I brought up, and we had to make sure we had plenty of time for our DITs to be taking footage and dumping it. And the investment into hard drive space was really important to make sure they had enough space, but that definitely ate up a lot of storage. But the end quality was awesome. You know, we're happy with the results. And that was the decision that the director and DP wanted to make. They're making a pilot, they wanted to future-proof it, they wanted the flexibility. If this needed to be shifted one way or another, they could. And 6, how does post-workflow affect your turnaround time? Sometimes, but rarely, is the footage that I'm shooting going out of the camera, into an editing bay, and onto a screen within the same day, or even potentially next, you know, a day or two. Most of the time, there's at least a week or 2 weeks of a post-production process for whatever commercial we're shooting on. Many times these post-production workflows are being rushed. Choosing the right camera system that the post-production house is used to is a consideration, but you don't have to sweat it. I mean, but I hear wandering DP in my head saying, that's not my problem. Like, I can totally see him thinking, yeah, no, who cares? This is what I'm gonna shoot on. So I think there's both. Maybe I got a little Midwest nice in me, but I also consider that. Now, luckily for me, most of the cameras I'm shooting on are the ARRI or the RED, or even, you know, sneak in the Venice if you can. So you do have to consider that a little bit, whether you're shooting RAW or you're shooting, you know, a compressed format. And then 7, you gotta think about the budget. And I'm not considering people who are owner operators where, like I said in the beginning, you know, you gotta shoot on my camera. I'm saying the budget for a commercial production. whether that's 100 to 500,000 to a million and beyond. You got to sometimes consider which lenses you can do. And this really comes down to the lenses, you know, in my experience, where they're trying to get the Hawk anamorphics to just cook full frame anamorphics, all the way down to the Atlas Mercury anamorphics, a more budget option. Or dream big, you know, for your spherical, shooting on Canon K35s or ARRI Zeiss signature primes. Your lenses are definitely gonna eat up your budget, but when you're asking what the project needs to look like and what will best support the project, then budget isn't always top of mind, but it's something to be considered. This is sometimes when owning a camera system can come in handy, because maybe the budget is cheap, but you've been wanting to shoot on these lenses, and maybe you knock down the price of your camera a little bit so that you can shoot on those lenses because you really wanted the visuals to thrive. And you know that it's gonna bring extra quality to that project. I know some of you might be writing down in the comments where you're losing money. I don't care. It's not about the money to me. I don't care. Lose it, gain it, it all comes full circle. It's fine. Think what camera and lens serves the project before you think, how can I make money? No one owned one in the city at the time. It was the new DSMC3 processor, the form factor. There were so many pros. I did not own a camera system at the time. I wanted an Alexa Mini LF, but there was already 3 in town, so I do not need to add or compete against my friends who own these cameras. I was filling in a space with this camera, and it goes on shoots all the time without me. Sometimes it's important to have that internal dialogue between your producers about what camera systems you're gonna be going with, and that typically never makes its way to the client. But here's a pro tip on a little lens I like to bring on every shoot. One of my pro tips on a little secret sauce I like to bring on every little shoot is the Laowa 0D 12mm lens. You never know where it might come in handy. Having that ultra wide point of view, the fact that it's a 2.8 and the fact that it's zero distortion, I think, and it covers full frame on at least the V-Raptor and the Alexa Mini LF. But it's a little thing I like to always have on set, even if it doesn't match, you know, the same lenses that we're using, or it's just something that I know has come in handy and has saved me on many shoots. You're putting these cameras in odd places and you need to get this wide look, or you want to show a crazy distortion on a product or, you know, someone's face in a moment. Just break out that 12mm. Dare I say, I mean, by now, maybe I should have bought one. Yeah, maybe I should have. But no, I don't have one. I'm already supporting the people who already invested into one. So by me renting from them, it helps them out. And you gotta also think about that for your whatever community you're in. Whether you're building community with Kessel Camera, Panavision, you know, all the friends over in Chicago at Camera Ambassador or Doffenbach or Magnanimous. You know, there's so many rental houses across this country, it's hard to keep up, but I've rented for many of them and you get an opportunity to try different lenses, and you know, the cameras are typically the same, but it's fun. So pro tip, sneak in a little 12mm into that lens rental, and you never know when it'll come in handy on set. All right, back to it. The right camera package isn't just the one you own, it's the one that makes the project work. And when you find that the right camera and lens combo brings you whatever project you're working on to life, or that you're able to have that 12mm sneak into a shot that you could have done without it, or simply the lens case you swapped because the DZO lens Cata Ace case is dumb, and you made it all murdered out black and you spent about $800 on it. But at least it looks cool. When you look good, you feel good kind of thing. Because these lenses are fine. They just need a better packaging. No. Anyway, matching the right camera and lenses together is part of the process. It's not just relying on the lens that you've had for years. Oh, but it can shoot this and it's sharp and I know it. Well, get uncomfortable. Try more things. Cinematography is about creating, not just capturing. All right, well, if you want to see more of my work, you can check out stevensecretus.com. Thanks for watching. Peace. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Peace.